Good evening, everyone. My name is Elizabeth Engel. I am the president of the Ward 6 Democrats, and I want to thank all of you for joining us this evening. As I noted, this event is being recorded and it will be posted to our YouTube channel later this week. So if you yourself want to be able to refer back to it, or you know someone who wanted to attend and was unable to, you'll be able to share the recording with them. The Ward 6 Democrats host events like this evening's Ask Me Anything style meet and greet with our 1D1 Commander Colin Hall as part of fulfilling our mission to build community across the diverse neighborhoods of Ward 6, to elect Democratic Party candidates, to educate voters, to support Democratic Party ideals and principles, and to work for DC statehood. And you can learn more about us at our website, which is here in the corner of my screen, ward6dems.org. And we'll also pop that URL in the chat. Tonight's topic, obviously, it's an Ask Me Anything with Commander Hall, but we know it's going to end up focusing a lot on crime in the district. And we know that's a challenging and emotional topic for people. So just as we go into the conversation, I'd like to encourage us all to keep the concept of working together to build the beloved community at the forefront of our minds as we grapple with something that is a challenging and emotional topic. And with that, I will turn things over to our events chair, Erin Sheehan, to introduce Commander Hall.
Perfect. Thank you. Like Elizabeth said, my name is Erin Sheehan. I'm the events chair for the Ward 6 Dems. So I'm just going to give a quick overview of how we see this event going, and then I'll turn it over to Commander Hall. So to start off, Commander Hall is going to just open it up with some introductory remarks about what his work looks like. And then we'll go to some of the questions that were submitted in advance. And then finally, we'll go to an open forum for any questions that you might have. If you all have questions that come up as the meeting is going on, feel free to put those in the chat and we can compile them and then either invite you to speak out loud and ask your question, or we can ask it on your behalf. Just a couple of ground rules as we're going through this. First of all, make sure that you all are staying on mute during the presentation. We have the ability to mute you, so if you forget, we'll do it for you. And then once we move into Q&A, if we have time to do some audience Q&A, you could either use your raise hand function or again, just type that question in the chat and then just wait to be recognized. So Elizabeth and I will be queuing up the questions that we get and we'll call on you once your time comes. And I think I just want to reiterate that I know the topic of crime can be a very fraught topic. So just encouraging everyone to treat Commander Hall and each other with respect, stay focused on the root causes of crime and solutions, and avoid any stereotypes of people or situations. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Commander Hall. He is the commander for the 1st District, which is where most of Ward 6, I think all of Ward 6 is located, and has over 25 years of experience in the Metropolitan Police Department. So with that, I'm just going to turn it over to him to talk a little bit about how MPD is structured, what is the 1st District, and what is his role in the 1st District. And then we'll move into questions.
All right. Thank you, Erin. Appreciate it. So thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here. I really appreciate the chance to talk to everybody and get to know everyone. One of the things I really like to do is get out with the community, talk to the community, hear from your perspective, what's going on, your eyes, see it from the ground level. I think that's really important. One of my hopes is to offer up small town policing style in a big city. So that's what we're shooting for. So you'll see me out, walking, talking, going to a lot of meetings when I'm asked. I try to do my best that I can to get to everyone that I'm asked to attend. And I appreciate that people want to talk to me. So I have been on the police department. I started in 1998. I could have retired last year, but I think we have some work that still needs to be done. I don't want to leave things unfinished to end my career. So I'm continuing on. I'll have 26 years actually coming up, and it's my MPD birthday, I guess you could say. Next month, in March, I'll be turning 26 in MPD years. So we continue on with the mission. I'm really enjoying being here at the 1st District. This is where I started in 1998. So I was a rookie officer. walking around, these same beats or PSAs back then. So I know it fairly well. I mean, things have changed quite a bit in some areas, more in some and less in others, but it's a lot is still kind of the same in ways. So it means something special to me to come back to where it all began for me. So, it makes it that more hit close to home because this has been a huge part of my life. I really feel like I was raised up through the MPD, and doing this. I've done it for most of my adult life. It's just become kind of my purpose in life, Uh, I'm enjoying it. I think we're having an impact. My goal is to have an impact out there and really to make you all feel safe, and the community feel safe. To me, my officers are my family. The 1D is my family, and the community is our larger family. And that's the way we treat it. So when something happens to one of you, I feel like it happens to me every time there's a robbery or carjacking or, God forbid, a shooting. It's like a little gut punch to me. We take it very seriously. It hurts me every time. So we do everything we can, and we just, we don't stop. We're not going to stop till we get things to where people feel safe to walk the streets, feel safe in their home, and feel like we're heading in the right direction. And I know I don't want to get ahead of questions and things like that, but I think we are heading in the right direction. Definitely in the first district to start out the year. I came into the year, we do kind of a crime plan, what we're going to do, our goals. And our focus was to reduce homicides. We had way too many homicides. Every homicide's just unfortunate and terrible. But we had way too many in the district overall and in 1D last year. Last year was a rough year throughout the city. We all know that. There's no, hiding from that or trying to, you know, candy coat it. It is, unfortunately what happened. So we need to bounce back and have a good year this year, and make you all feel safe. And like I was saying, our goals coming into the year were to reduce homicides, reduce robberies, and carjackings. We carry them as one kind of category, but they're really two things split into one. And then also stolen autos. We're really focusing on those three things because all three of those have a nexus to each other. Stolen autos drive robberies oftentimes. Robberies, carjackings will also drive some of our other violent crime, including homicides. So you can make a connection through all of those. I'm happy to report starting out the year, we have significant reductions in robberies in the first district. We're about down 30% to start the year out. So, knock on wood, we'll keep doing that. I have great officers, a great team. We're also down about 18%. I didn't check the numbers today, but we're down in the teens and stolen autos, and we're down significantly as well in homicides for the first district. And our violent crime overall is down. So we're starting out on the right path, right foot. Right now, the only thing that we're seeing up in the first district is thefts. We're slightly up in our burglaries, but we're talking, basically like two burglaries compared to where we had, we're a +2, and slightly up in our assaults with dangerous weapons. But again, it's like one more than what we had last year. So overall, we are down, in crime. When I talk about the first district, it's a large area, very different in certain areas. We cover the 8th Street corridor northeast, uh, and also Capitol Hill all the way out to the jail. We actually handle investigations inside the jail. And we go all the way down to the Navy Yard. We cover all of the Navy Yard, the stadium, over to Audi Field as well. Southwest, we have all of the Southwest with a lot of public housing, which is a vastly different area than, say, Capitol Hill. And you've got the Navy Yard, which is a fast growing, very young area. Uh, and then we've got the wharf, which I'm sure you're familiar with that, what kind of environment we have there. We've got thousands of people coming into those areas. We just had to cover the Mardi Gras parade about a week ago, and they had 40,000 people there. And that was first district officers that were responsible for that. And then to top it all off, we were covering Chinatown. So we're responsible for everything that's occurring in Chinatown and Mount Vernon Triangle, which is also a vastly different area than our residential areas. Everything around Cap One Arena, all the drama that you have with the Capitals and the Wizards. We get to partake in that. And we're in the fight there. There's a lot of focus what's going on in Chinatown. I think we have some exciting things. We've also made huge inroads in the crime that we've seen up there. We've got some great collaborations going with the Metro Transit Police. Again, just some of the things that we're doing this year starting out is we're really two agencies that we're pulling in tight with us to help us as force multipliers and just have great teamwork and communication is Metro Transit Police. We're doing joint footbeat patrols and a lot of joint crime enforcement in the Chinatown area. We're expanding that down to the southwest area around the waterfront metro area. And then the DC Housing Police, we started, one of the concerns we did have starting out the year was some violence that was occurring around our public housing areas, Potomac Gardens, and then the Southwest with the James Creek, Syfax neighborhoods and Greenleaf. So we've really partnered with them as well there to support each other. And we're seeing some of that kind of subside now, but we really have to be watchful in those areas. Some of the things you'll see coming out this year, we've already announced, was the mayor and the chief announced the safe commercial hubs, corridor hubs. I probably messed up the name there, but we just call it the hub. So that opened up in Chinatown, and that's one of the things that we really need to work on is collaborating with our DC government partners because we can't do it all alone. A lot of the issues that we face out there are mental health issues, homelessness, drug addiction. So these hubs, the idea is to have DC government agencies in there with us, the DC Health, Behavioral Health, the MOKers, from the mayor's office, a lot of these agencies that can support us with handling some of the issues that we're seeing out there on the streets. Especially in areas like that. So they're going to be in those offices in those spaces with us and working right alongside of us. They'll give us a permanent footprint up in Chinatown. So we'll have officers in there patrolling from there and working out of there along with those agencies. And I think you'll see that expanding throughout the city. Some of the other things that you'll see coming are the Real-Time Crime Center. It's kind of launched, but it's in its infancy. It's not fully operational right now. But that's something where we're going to be live monitoring a lot of the cameras and working with. They have investigators working hand in hand at the same time, so we can get a quicker foot on top of crime as it's emerging. So that's kind of the idea there. And one of the things that I like to do, one of my strategies is, and you'll see hopefully more and more of it as we increase our manpower. I think that was one of the questions that was out there was about our recruitment and all, but is bike patrols, more and more bike patrols. I'm a big fan of bike patrols. I think that they're really great to, not only are they good for fighting crime, because you can sneak up on bad guys a lot of times, they don't even see you coming, but they're also great for community engagement. You're able to interact with the officers. There's not a car, in between the officer and the community. You can interact with them. You see what they're doing. They can see what you're doing. And there's just a lot more talking going on. And, it's really useful. Because like I said, we can't do it without you. It's family and it's team, your eyes and ears. A lot of the leads that we get on cases are from information that's provided by the community. So what you're seeing out there is very helpful. We need to be able to have that connection. The community is very, very important to me and having that community connection. And I try and relay that to our officers and get that same message to them. So hopefully you see that when you're out there talking with them. Another area, just to talk a little bit more about what we're doing out there, retail theft became a really big issue last year, driving out some of the businesses in the district. And you've seen in other areas of the nation as well. So we began very directed and concerted effort to attack retail theft. It is one of the areas that we've seen go up this year. However, I believe there's a logical reason for it, and that is because we're so directly attacking this issue that those establishments are reporting it to us more, where they would just kind of not report it a lot of times or wouldn't even deal. They'd let the criminals walk out with the products. Now they'll report it to us because they see that we're doing things. So we're in a lot of the stores weekly. We'll be inside of CVS's working with them, conducting operations inside their store. We've done it in CVS's. We've done it in some of the other stores throughout the district. We've made a lot of arrests. We've gotten everything from just, people being arrested, carrying out rolls of paper towels to we've gotten people with guns. We've gotten drugs. So we made a lot of different arrests. It also allows us to get a catalog of the folks that are conducting this, so that we can more easily track them down in the future when they come back. And then the other part of our strategy throughout in all these areas, Chinatown, retail theft, 8th Street corridor, is once we make an arrest, we need to get stayaways, which really, is something the U.S. Attorney's Office helps us with, and then we need the judges to issue the stay away and enforce the stay away. But it's part of our strategy is stayaways. So if we make an arrest, say in Chinatown for drug trafficking, we're going to push for a stay away, and that way we kind of retake the territory a little bit. If they come back, we can make an arrest right away, for being in that area. So it's kind of where we're at. I would say it's kind of wraps up my introduction, but like I said, that's what we're doing, and that's how I feel about it. I'm very optimistic coming this year, and I want to transfer the optimism to you and spread that throughout the community because I think all of us together working on this, we're going to have a great year. We can make some real impacts and inroads out there. So I do think we're going to have a good year, and I'm very hopeful coming into the year. So if you have any
Awesome.
questions, yeah.
Thank you. That covered a lot of the topics that people had already asked about. So I really appreciate the broad overview of kind of all of the work that you all have been doing. You touched a little bit on some crimes have increased. Now we're seeing a lot of different crimes decrease again. I think we also know, just given some like broader context, a lot of cities saw these big increases in crime during the pandemic. And then, unlike DC, I think saw larger decreases in crime. So we're still an outlier with some categories. So I think maybe and this is a broad, a big question, but what are some of the theories you have about why some types of crimes have stayed high, theories about why certain crimes have decreased, and just what's different about DC compared with other cities?
Right. So, crime stats are kind of a funny thing because, if you take our stats, we had a really bad year last year, right? So we're positioned to have a really good year this year. So I haven't taken all those other cities to see where they're at, but I've heard that argument that say Baltimore and, New York and these other cities have had better years than us. I haven't done the statistics but if you have a really bad year the year before, like they did, say in 2022, and then 2023, they're going to have a better year. Well, if we come into this year and we have a better year compared to last year, we're going to have, a reduction all through the board. It's going to put it right back to those cities that are now seeing an increase, right? So, I mean, it's crime stats. We may have had our increase later than they did. Like it may have hit us later, but I can tell you what really impacted there. There's a couple things for DC. I saw one of your questions. We do have a system that's built unlike any other city that I'm aware of in the nation. With just the federal government involved in it, so it's different in that it's also just a small city state kind of area, right? Where we're influenced heavily by what's going on in Maryland and Virginia as well. The borders coming through those areas. Um, and what happened last year, it really was a national kind of trend where what started spiking is really interesting. And it happens. So, it'd be interesting to go back and really analyze how this all occurred. But, when we saw at the end of last year, last year, 22 going to 2023, we saw the TikTok challenge come out. And that was kind of really like a red flag where we saw like the stolen autos just go to skyrocket to where it was just, something I hadn't ever seen before. And the numbers just jumped off, through the roof. which is one of the reasons I believe a lot of stuff, there's a nexus between it all, um, and then we saw carjackings take off as well. Just but to the question, I think that DC has the issue where we're not in control of everything that occurs in the city, and you're not even in control of everything as residents, right? And voting, so some of it is just beyond our control what we can do. Um, some of it is things that have been going on for years upon years. When you talk about homicides and feuds, neighboring feuds, I don't know if that's different. I believe that's in a lot of cities. But we take that whole mix and kind of stir it up, you might come out with what we had.
Hmm. Yeah, I think that makes sense. Getting to that piece about the way that DC is different than a lot of other cities or states. I also wanted to ask about what you see, and this was another question that was submitted, what you see as the impact of our fragmented system of prosecution, where there's presidentially appointed Attorney General Matthew Graves, who's prosecuting some cases, and then our DC State Attorney General, who's prosecuting others.
I think it leads to a lot of problems when just having, uh, and this isn't anything against Matthew, U.S. Attorney Matthew Graves. I've done a lot of forums with him, and he's a wonderful gentleman. But he's not accountable to DC or the residents of DC. He answers to the federal government. And I know he's trying his hardest and doing his best, but I do think that that in and of itself, uh, you know, me personally, I think that the system would be much smoother and reflect a lot more of what's obviously the residents want. If you have elected officials that are responsible for making those decisions on cases, when you're talking about papering cases and what's being charged and who's being, making the ultimate calls on these things. Because there is definitely, when you're dealing with the federal government, there's a little bit of a wall that you have to get through. Um, so yeah, I think it has an impact.
Great, thank you. And David, I just wanted to make sure you saw Elizabeth's comment in the chat. We have some pre-submitted questions that we want to get through, and then we'll turn it over to you, so we're not ignoring you.
That's fine. I didn't think you were.
Perfect.
Not a problem.
Awesome. Another thing that we wanted to ask about is what thoughts you might have about Secure DC, the new crime bill that the council advanced just a few weeks ago. And if that were to be implemented, what effects do you think it might have?
Well, as an agency, we support Secure DC. So
Mhm.
something that the chief has come out. I know the mayor has. There's things in there that I definitely think will help. And we hope that does pass. When you look at things just like and I don't know all the changes it's hard to keep up with it. And even, there's like pages and pages of the bill. But the things that I look at and that I believe are still in the bill are the theft being increased to felony $500. That would have an impact on, I could tell you, our retail theft operations, because right now we try to make cases to build up to a felony, so we can actually, get some of these people held, so we're not constantly rearresting the same people. Um, from a police department standpoint, some of the things don't hear about, but I can tell you that will have the biggest impact are going to be the things that are going to affect the officers. And there's some things in there that are altered for their day-to-day kind of things for the officers with the BWC, the way that it can be viewed, things with neck restraints that's being corrected. And then you have the drug-free zones, which it's another tool. Every tool that we have in the toolbox is helpful. We'll have to see how the impact of those and how well they work, but I think that every tool that we have out there is helpful, and we can explore it for sure. So I think it'll be helpful. I hope it passes, and uh, and we'll see what comes from it.
Great. I'm going to touch on a couple more of the pre-submitted questions and then we can open it up to David's question. And then I saw Pat also put something in the chat. So I think, and this is a big topic that you touched on a little bit in your introductory remarks, but could you expand a little bit more on the first district's approach to community policing and what steps you have been taking and plan to take to improve community relations? And again, I know you touched on a little bit of that.
Mhm. Right. So that's I can tell you one thing: we're doing community policing every day. We have an outreach team, which probably a lot of you know. Our outreach team, they're doing some activity with the community, whether it's in schools, community walks, reading with children, going to senior homes, feeding folks uh, every day. One of the things I think we need to do is include more of our regular patrol officers in that effort. You know, you probably know some of our regular outreach folks who are awesome, and I think they're the best in the city. But I want to get our officers deeper involved there, our patrol officers back to doing those walks as well. So you see more of the officers who are going to be answering your calls, right? Uh, on community walks or in some of our meetings. I know I'm going to bring back something I did when I was at the 7th district was I had an officer spotlight. So, you know, I do the CAC meeting, so I'll plan on bringing all of our officers into the CAC meeting, giving them a chance to introduce themselves, talk a little bit about themselves, and you get to more of the faces. I have some other ideas to get some more newer officers involved as well. And some of it even goes back to when I was an officer there. You know, it was like when I came back as a commander, there were people in the community that remembered me from that far back, 25 years ago. And I just think that's so important to build those connections. So I want that for our officers. You know, how do you do that to build connections so they get to know the people that they're out there serving and protecting? So it's really personal because to me, it's personal. You know, we're doing this is a personal business. Like this is not just something you go punch a clock and go home. You know, it's really it's deep seated, it's personal. And when you make those connections, it becomes more personal. So it's kind of my theory on community policing, and when you get that, you also get the help of the community as well. Everything from down from information passing to people that will be willing to help you if you're in a life-threatening situation. You know, and some of that goes back to my own past. You know, I can remember being in physical, you know, altercations where who knows what could happen, but you know, citizens came and helped actually helped me. So you don't get that if you know you don't have those connections, or if the perception is it's us against them kind of thing. So that's what we need to get through to have our officers display and also, you know, hopefully make that connection with the community so you feel that way as well about us. Um, so anyway, we do that by walks, you know, all different engagements, churches, all sorts of groups. And like I said, I want to give the small town policing in a big city. That's you know, you'll get hear me say that over and over again because I think that's a good way to put it. If you have meetings, things like that, I'm going to try and be there, and I have you know a calendar full of things like that. And I came to your Christmas party. That was kind of one of the right. So that was you know kind of one of those things. I want to be there for those things, and it means a lot to me to be invited. It means a lot to hopefully you know just trying to show you how much I care about it. That I'm going to be there for it.
Awesome. It was great to have you. Um, I want to move on to a question that Benjamin Curran submitted, and I see that he's here. So Benjamin, feel free to come off mute and expand on your question. Um, this also might be a question that others on the Zoom might have some ideas about. So feel free to jump in the chat with some of what you've seen. But the question really is, are there any type of public safety community meetings planned that are really getting to hearing from youth affected by crime or involved with crime, their parents, and some types of trusted organizations? Benjamin listed Guns Down Friday as an example, either with or without MPD, but it would be ideal to include MPD. So
Right.
that's the question. Big
Right.
one.
That's a good question. And I think, you know, getting to the youth is really the next step, right? You know, just to trying to get ahead of it before there's real damage out there. You know, and try to get some positive role models and some positive activities with our youth. We do a lot with DPR, Department of Recs. That's probably the biggest one for the first district, patrol. We have a youth engagement bureau, and they do a lot of that with what you're talking about with various groups and different activities with the youth, and they're into that daily. I know the chief also has a plan. I don't have it with me, but I know it's been talked about, kind of roundtable discussions with these organizations and having youth sit in on the table, which I think is a great idea as well. So yeah, I think there's things at work at play, and I think there'll be more coming. And then we do a lot of things with the schools also from the patrol standpoint. But yeah, I think you'll see more of that kind of thing coming out.
Awesome, thank you. And I'll just point everyone also to the note that Elizabeth put in the chat. Oh, it looks like Benjamin was there as well. It was an event focused on carjacking that we did with the Hill Rag at Hill Center a few weeks ago, and Elizabeth dropped the link to that event in the chat if folks are interested. So I think with that, I'm going to hand it over to David. Your hand has been raised for a while, so I'd love to have you come off mute and ask your question.
Thank you very much. Hearing the commander talk about community connections and information spreading is music to my ears as an advisory neighborhood commissioner. That's the sort of thing I do whenever I'm working as a ANC commissioner. And so I'd like to ask the commander if you would make a commitment to either attend in person or send someone from 1D to our public safety committee meetings or our full ANC meetings going forward. That's something that when I was an ANC commissioner in Southwest a few years ago, we really benefited from having somebody from 1D make regular appearances. So I'm wondering if someone from 1D can start making regular appearances at ANC 6B events on Capitol Hill.
Right. And are your ANC 6B, are they Zoom or are they in person?
Well, we've actually started having hybrid meetings.
Okay.
So you can attend by Zoom or you can attend in person.
Yeah, it's not a problem. We'll definitely have someone there. It kind of varies with the ANCs whether they have MPD on the agenda or not. But if you want us on the agenda, then we'll be more than happy. If you just wanted to send me the calendar, I can.
Our next public safety committee meeting is the 26th of February at 6:30 p.m. And I will talk to the chair of the committee about getting in touch with you about that.
Okay. Yeah. No, we're happy to do that.
Yeah, thank you. Whoever's posting that in the chat, thank you. That's the whole 6B calendar.
Okay.
But I will also talk to her about contacting you. We just reestablished the Public Safety Committee about a year ago, a little over a year ago, and they've already done great work, but they haven't had close enough connections with 1D police officers, and that's really important. So let me contact her and have her contact you. Thank you.
Great. Yeah.
Perfect. Next up in the chat, we had a question from Pat. Pat, I don't know if you want to come off mute or ask your question.
Well, it was basically a simple question. Thanks for allowing me the opportunity. And Commander, thank you so much for being here. And the Ward 6 Dems, I used to be a member, but thank you all for putting this together. And I'm really, really surprised that we don't have more people on the Zoom in this meeting. And I mean, I know that's not my question, but we're talking a lot about youth, but I think it would be really helpful if we got some youth, some young adults involved in these sessions as well. Now, my question to you, Commander, is what are your thoughts about getting the National Guard involved to assist the Metropolitan Police Department? I mean, I don't need to tell you how bad crime is in DC, and I've been here all of my life, and I think it's the worst it's ever been that I've seen and experienced. That people are afraid. We're actually afraid walking down the streets. And with everything that's going on, I'm right over here at the waterfront, and then the Navy Yard. I mean, it's just all around. So that's my question.
Yeah.
I mean, couldn't you use more help?
Yeah, I mean, and that's what we want to, try and prevent is that feeling. Like I said at the beginning, you can hopefully see us out there with Metro Transit down in the Southwest area. one of the force multipliers, which is kind of what the National Guard would be, a force multiplier. But I can tell you, so going through my years, there was a time when the National Guard did come out with us when I was an officer. And what it really resulted in, they would bring out light towers and things like that, is we end up having to go sit with them and kind of guard the National Guard. So I don't see it as a very productive uh, avenue. And there's a couple other reasons for that. One is they're just not trained that way. I know they have, law enforcement, military law enforcement. Some are trained in crowd control, and that's why we call them in for things like, riots. If it gets really out
Okay.
of control, they are trained that way. But when you talk about the things that really come up nationally, right? Like when you talk about a shooting with a police officer involved or use of force, and somebody's life is, ultimately taken or seriously injured. I don't know if we want our military involved in that. And, our officers, we have a lot of difficulty with it, even with our police officers. They go through months and months of training and then even experience years and years of, street interactions. And it's just, it's a very tough position to be in. And if you don't have the people that are really trained for that and do it every day, that's probably the biggest thing is when you're talking about doing it every day, day in, day out. I don't know if that's where we want to be. I just think we really need to bolster our police, the police that we have, MPD, get our numbers back up, get the community back engaged. Some of these changes, I talked about security C, I think are going to help. I definitely get where you're coming from, and having more folks out there now,
That's what I'm
it's,
thinking.
yeah, is helpful, but I
Okay.
kind of seen it, and I don't know if it's the best way to go.
Okay. Well, thank you for that.
Yeah, and hopefully we're gonna get you feeling safe down in the Southwest.
I mean, it's everywhere I go. I used to walk out and walk up to Eastern Market and walk all over the place. Now I'm just constantly. If you've been mugged once in Washington, D.C., you
No, I
you
know,
know,
and
it's,
that's the thing. It hurts me. I know.
I mean, I have been right around the corner from where I live. So, but that
Yeah,
was some years ago. But it's just now it's like, I'm constantly turning around to see who's walking behind me.
yeah.
It's
I'll
horrible.
just tell you, this is just this off the kind of off the topic, but some of it is too. We've really got to look at reoffenders. We arrest a lot of the same people. So where that comes into it, some of that's legislative, some of it's with the U.S. Attorney's Office, some of it's with the judges.
Okay.
We rearrest a lot of the same folks, and it gets tough. We do a fairly good job at catching people, uh, but then there's other processes that we're only one piece of it. So there's other parts that play there, and I don't know if they're all working at the same pace.
That's what I'm thinking. I mean, it's just amazing to me that, you have these children out here, 13, 14, and 15 years old,
Yeah,
out in the streets, and it's like they don't value life,
yeah.
which is
We had
something
a
different.
we had a 9-year-old, just
Yeah.
a
Oh,
week
yeah.
ago.
Yeah.
Um, I will
Yeah.
tell you, since you brought up Eastern Market, it's one of the things that I've been focused on as well. And somebody asked me that question just a couple of days ago. Are we still focused on Eastern Market? It was something we started at the end of last year, and some people commented on seeing our police activity out there. So we made under a dozen arrests or whatever at the Eastern Market Metro Park, but it's significant because I don't think it's been policed like that in the past. So, some of the people who live around there would, state they're afraid to walk through the park, that kind of thing.
Crazy.
Drug activity, right? So we made quite a few drug arrests there, sent a message, and we will be back as the weather gets warm to do it again. I haven't heard those complaints. Some of it again is mental health issues and homelessness over there, but we're going to try and eradicate the criminal behavior so we can get the social services get in there and do what they need to do. And I think we saw an impact because I didn't get the complaints went down. I can tell you that much from Eastern Market. That's one of the areas I really want to turn back over. And when I say retake some territory, is that plaza area, that park there.
Awesome. I want to ask a follow-up question on some of what you just said. and this builds on some of what you said earlier. Could you just talk a little bit more about some of the strategies DC is using to recruit new cadets? Yeah, that's the question.
Yeah, so actually, it's one of the things that we are highly focused on. We stood up a whole brand new recruiting unit, and they are so that's something we didn't have before. Put fresh blood into it. They're going out of state to colleges. We have a section that focuses on the military, which I think is a great way to go because you've got folks coming out of the military. They're looking. We have hiring bonuses out there, which if I were that age, I'm almost think I should retire and come back because you get $25,000 hiring bonus. And they are now helping with housing and all sorts of things. I think that's going to help. But I can tell you like one anecdotal kind of story about it is, we're going out of state, and one of the areas that we've been focused on a lot is New York, big state, not that far away. And so all over, not only just New York City, they have on the metros, buses, but also upstate New York and rural New York. And I had one female officer I was on a community walk with up in the Mount Vernon Triangle a couple weeks ago, and we started talking about it. And she said that there's almost like a pipeline coming from her small town in New York, where she came from. She's about the fourth officer now from this small little town in New York. Because once you get that kind of going, people know and pass the word on around in that small rural area. And now they've got kind of a pipeline coming down from New York. And we actually have quite a few New York officers and New York natives on the department. So that's kind of the strategy is, you've got these hiring bonuses, housing bonuses, there's college, not bonuses, but reimbursements. And then they are focusing on these universities, certain states, and the military as well. And we've got this brand new unit working on it. So I think we're seeing some better recruitment from the classes coming, and again, hopefully we'll keep that up coming through the year. We've actually got a class on Friday that we're going to graduation, so we'll get some new officers out there.
Awesome, thank you. I want to move on to Adam's question in the chat. Adam, do you want to come off and unmute and ask your question?
Sure. Anyway, I'm also a native Washingtonian, and Pat, what you mentioned about Southwest is true here in Northeast too. I live pretty close to Lincoln Park, and Commander, I mentioned in my question about a murder that happened of the Uber driver, and it was right in the alley. There was a video of 3 kids running away after they shot the driver, and the community had a large fundraiser for the family, and there was a lot of PR. But then, as quick as everything started, it died away again, and we heard nothing. And I've often wondered, with the number of murders that have happened in the city, could you tell us a little bit about the investigation process is? And, I've wondered, do you have enough officers available to do those researching into the homicides that are occurring in DC? And as far as public safety goes, on my block, hardly anyone is walking their dogs now after the sun goes down. And, when you do talk to the neighbors, everyone's pretty terrified of crime. They feel very, very unsafe. And irony is, I've lived here all my life, and back in the days when there were drug dealers on the street corners, those guys looked out for everyone on the street. If you owned a car on the block, it was never broken into, and you were never harmed because you were part of the neighborhood. But with the kids running around here now, you have no idea what's going to happen. So long-winded, but my question really goes back to the homicide. Commander, if you could tell us about that.
Right. So yeah, I'm very familiar with that homicide that did occur before I came back to the first district. But I've been briefed on it and where we're at with it. Unfortunately, you know, it's one of those things I wish I could just tell you everything that I have on it. But we have to, it's a homicide investigation. I could tell you a lot of progress has been made on it. Uh, this is something that we can we do investigations. The Attorney General's office prosecutes the case. So we present these cases to, Attorney General's office. So we're working with them on the case. Um, but there's been a lot of progress in that case. As for investigators, it's like with everything, we wish we had more, but they do a very good job. They're very good at what they do. They have a lot of tactics and strategies. I think we have the best homicide detectives in the United States. They're very, very thorough, very good. Homicide investigations can take a long time, but we don't give up on them. That's why you'll see some announcements from 2022, 2021. We're not giving up on these cases. So the suspects they can't rest. We're going to keep on it. So they tackle them at all angles, most definitely. The video, the ballistics, forensics, um, you know, following up with tips that are made, um, interviews. It's all angles, all aspects. They're very thorough. The first, right from the the crime scene. Um, so. I think that of course, as we increase, we lost, it just goes into the whole personnel issue. We did lose a lot of officers over the last several years, so it's something we're trying to rebuild upon, and that will also help our homicide detectives. And it'll help all investigations as we rebuild. We'll be able to put more detectives out there. But I can tell you, getting to like your neighborhood, Lincoln Park, that's another area. Really, we had a lot of issues around Lincoln Park last year. That was kind of a hot area for robberies and carjackings. We're very aware of that. I don't want to, I always kind of knock on wood. We put a lot of focus in on that area. We made a lot of arrests as well. So we have seen uh, a real decrease over there, around there. We're also trying to do some traffic over in that area as well, just to kind of layer it. There are traffic concerns as well. But I think we've made some progress in that area, and we're going to keep on. It's definitely, high on my list. I'm always watching the Lincoln Park and that kind of area and that neighborhood over there. And we're doing pretty well to start the year out.
Thank you. And then I think we could go to one more question from the chat. Ben, you had a question about the guardian angels. Do you want to ask that one?
Just hey, thank you, Aaron. And I agree with Pat. I think it was yeah, it would be nice if there were more people on this. We're going to help you get the word out because this is a great opportunity. Thank you for the commander. Guardian angels. I don't know enough about their history, but I expect they don't exist anymore. But maybe the commander can shed some light. Are there sort of responsible to professional to some extent, trusted, groups like this, men and women, who are available to assist in sort of around the edges, you might say, and marginally.
Yeah.
In
I may have cut you off, but
no, that's good.
yeah. I still have about 4 minutes to answer according to their, and they wanted to stop at 7:25, so I'll try and put it right in there. It's a good question, and I have an answer for you. There are guardian angels still at work in DC. There's not that many. I don't know the actual activity of their group, but I do know one of the leaders of it that's in the DC area. I don't know how many they have. They come out sometimes with us on walks. They'll show up. I don't know exactly what prompts them to show up in certain areas, but they are out and about. Um, I think that they are probably helpful, and that they're one of those groups that I haven't seen anything negative in DC with them. There's some other groups that maybe there has been some issues, but as far as any kind of community activist group goes, they seem to have the right intentions when I've interacted with them. But I will tell you, going back to it made me think about Lincoln Park as well. And we talk about getting active and being out there. Some of the neighbors in the Lincoln Park neighborhood started forming their own groups at night to go out, especially around like Kentucky Avenue, right off that area. And they just formed their own group. They want us to support them. We would send an officer out there with them as well, but it was really kind of a grassroots thing. Last year, and we were having a lot of issues and problems with carjackings, robberies late at night, and they would go out. They went out probably twice a week, and they'd start around 9 o'clock at night, and they go out with flashlights and walk around the neighborhood looking for anything that looked out of place. And also, a lot of what we need to get out there is messaging to the community. Some of the folks are new to DC or new to being in a city, and just do things that draw attention to themselves, which, it doesn't make it right. I mean, we want people to be able to be out here and do whatever and be safe, but still it helps to have precautions, just like sitting in cars late at night, not paying attention to what's going on around themselves, being on their cell phones, having earphones in, carrying valuables exposed, and they would help do that as well. So they'd walk around and tell somebody like, hey, maybe you shouldn't be sitting out in your car with your hazard lights on, or on your phone this late at night, and so they would walk around and do that, and also look out for anything out of the ordinary. And they still do. They started back up, I think, because the weather got warmer. But those kind of things, I think, do help, and I think it helps from a grassroots level. And I think probably the guardian angels, in a supportive kind of way, are helpful as well. They're just not that active right now. I think it kind of sums it up, right? Getting everything there.
Awesome. I'm gonna ask one closing question. It's okay. You can go a little over
Okay.
7:25. Elizabeth can condense her closing comments. I think the final question I wanted to ask to close it out, and this seems to tie everything together well, is just building off of what you just said. What can we as neighbors do to help you all and keep our community safe?
Yeah, and you are right, John Ayala. Yeah, that was the name. I think kind of what I just was talking about, like really, I'll tell you one thing, cameras really help. Keeping good, the higher quality camera, I know it's talking about money, but the city does also have a camera rebate program. It's very helpful. Being alert and spreading that to your neighbors, like the kind of things I just kind of talked about, like the things where we saw people, don't make yourself an easy target if possible, with the phones, just getting that kind of public education out there, putting tracking devices and knowing how to get into them. Like we had the AirTag program. The more AirTags, GPS tracking we have on things that you're carrying, cars, phones, whatever we think might get stolen is going to be a huge help. It's the first thing we go to when we have a robbery or carjacking is there any way we can track this? We've made so many arrests just by tracking. We'll track these guys down wherever they go. We're going to track them if we can track it. Um, and just passing that information on, like little things are not too small. Some folks think that they're bothering us with little things. You're not bothering me. You can send me emails, whatever, things that you're seeing in the neighborhood. And a lot of times that alerts us to where to be, because it's a huge area, right? And we've got only so many officers. So, it's really like 20, 25 officers patrolling, on an evening. So if we know where to put them, it's a huge help if if you're telling us things. And also I can tell you, it's really beneficial, just positive support, for me, for the officers, if they feel it. It really, because the negative stuff is hard to combat, especially from a leadership level. Like we have to try and get them motivated out there. So all the motivation you can give our officers helps out a whole lot. The whole thing, just saying hi to them is great, But definitely any information you could pass on, cameras, GPS tracking, and spreading the information about not being an easy target is really helpful.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And thank you for answering all of these questions. This was all really interesting. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Elizabeth and she will close us out for the night.
So I just want to reiterate what Aaron said, thanking Commander Hall for making time for us this evening, thanking all of you for making time for this conversation this evening. Mobilize is going to send you a follow-up asking for feedback. Please let us know what you think. If you have ideas or suggestions for other events like this or other types of events, let us know. We have lots of volunteering opportunities with the Ward 6 STEMs. Obviously 2024 election year. So there are going to be many, many GOTV volunteering opportunities, both inside and outside DC. We are also still on the lookout for a replacement for our secretary, who takes our meeting notes, who unfortunately, due to a job change, had to stop filling that volunteer role. So if you know somebody who is interested and good at note taking, send them my way, please. We have a bunch of upcoming events. We are going to have continuing events in this public safety series. And Pat, we have made a note about your suggestion about involving DC youth in those conversations. We've got some events coming up with various council members. We're looking to put together something with Councilmember Kenyon McDuffie and with our City Council Chair, Phil Mendelson. Our Young Dems of Ward 6 Committee is looking at putting together an event on home rule. And we are working with the Anacostia River Keepers on getting a boat tour of the fabulous Anacostia River set up for later this spring. You can learn more and stay up to date by joining us. And I'm about to drop the link for that in the chat. And all that joining does is sign you up to receive our newsletter. There's no larger commitment or anything like that. That'll just get you signed up to receive our bi-monthly newsletter, so you can be kept abreast of all this cool stuff that we're doing. And with that, just again, thank you all for coming this evening, and look for the video to show up on our YouTube channel in the next couple of days. Everyone have a great night.